The History of Archimedes, a presentation by Devin Morales. Archimedes was a mathematician born in 287 BC. He was the son of the astronomer named Phidias. Apart from that, not much is known about Archimedes' life or his family, but we do know of his creations. Archimedes is responsible for creating many things, including that experiment where you would put a stone inside of a graduated cylinder. Yeah, Archimedes pretty much discovered that. And you know how science finds what a sphere's area is? Archimedes. Archimedes has created so many things that have benefited our society even to this day, and I'll explain how. In this presentation, you will figure out what Archimedes had done to discover all of his creations, what Archimedes went through making these. We will talk about Archimedes' 3 greatest creations he had ever made. The first one of being the Archimedes screw. Now, many of you must be asking, what is an Archimedes screw? Now, an Archimedes screw is a way that Archimedes had found out that if you made a screw that could push water upwards, that'd be a way of getting water from lakes or rivers to go up to the mainland without having to dig a giant trench into the water going down and then having people to go down there. It would have been a lot easier for Archimedes to have made the screw than for people to continue working on what they do. And believe it or not, the Archimedes screw is still used today. Slightly more advanced, of course, but still used. This is one of his many creations and inventions that he had made. And all of these inventions had gained him popularity among the village, and eventually popularity among the kings. So, one day, Archimedes was asked by the king to figure out if his crown was made completely out of gold, because he had asked a craftsman to make him a gold crown, and he gave him the gold. However, he feared that the craftsman had taken some of the gold for himself and put a little bit of silver in it. The funny story is, when Archimedes discovered this, he was in the bath, and being so excited over it, he had immediately ran to the king, naked, screaming "Eureka!" saying that he had pretty much discovered that the density of gold is greater than the density of silver. So if you put gold in water, then it'll rise a lot higher than if you were to put silver in water. So this is how he discovered that the crown was not made out of completely gold. And in fact, the craftsman did steal some gold for himself. What a greedy craftsman. This is where the experiment of putting the stone in the graduated cylinder, trying to figure out how high it raises in like milligrams or milliliters, was kind of given birth. It probably existed beforehand, but nobody knows really. So this discovery gave Archimedes so many more opportunities because the king knew who he was, and he was so popular among people. So Archimedes had then led on to make so many creations, one of which he considered his best creation, the discovery of figuring out how to measure the area of a sphere. Not pi. He discovered that, but he didn't consider that his best discovery. He's most known for it. But he did discover how to make a sphere area. Unfortunately, you will have to wait before you get to hear what that is. Because the way he discovered it, he had used a form of pi. So we have to figure out what he had done first for pi. So, if you don't know what pi is, it's 3.1415926353, and so on. You probably have no idea what that means or what it is. Pi is the circumference of a circle. And the way Archimedes had discovered the idea of pi was pretty insane. First thing he had done was thought of a circle in his head. This was all in his head. Thought of a circle, and then thought of a triangle outside and inside of the circle. Then he had calculated the perimeter of both triangles, well, the circumference of both triangles, and he had gotten kind of close to the circumference of a circle. Then he had drawn a hexagon inside and outside of the circle, calculating the perimeter there and getting even closer to what pi was. The next thing he had done was pretty insane and out of the blue. He had drawn a 96-sided polygon that he thought of completely in his head, calculated the perimeter of it, and got the rough estimate of pi. Of course, there would be really no way of discovering pi in that time, so this was your best bet. This is the closest estimate we had gotten. So, after whatever time, someone discovered what pi really was, which was 3.14159266353, so on. But the idea of the circumference of a circle really was thought up by Archimedes. And you might not know the purpose of this, but this really helps when trying to calculate what the circumference of a sphere is, or what anything really could be. And now, the moment you have all been waiting for: how to calculate the surface area and volume of a sphere. Now, if you look at a sphere normally, this would be seemingly impossible. A sphere has no edges whatsoever, and there would be no way of calculating how the sphere could possibly be made. And especially in BC times where they had no calculators, but Archimedes had managed to do that. He had calculated the entirety of a sphere in weird ways. So first of all, he had calculated the height by imagining a cylinder with a hemisphere inside of it. A hemisphere is half of a sphere. So, imagining that, he would be able to calculate the height of a cylinder, assuming the cylinder would reach the bottom, well, the top of the hemisphere would be the same height as the top of the cylinder. Now, he cut it in half because he just had to times it by 2. The next thing he had done is he basically cut the sphere in to pieces. He had cut the very top of the sphere, measured that, and had kept on cutting very small, thin pieces and calculating the exact area of each piece. In his head, of course. This wouldn't be possible in real life, especially in their time. So, in doing that, he'd be able to figure out, by the end, how big a sphere could be by the edges. So, after discovering this, he just times it by 2. And that's it. He'd find the entire volume of a sphere. He had also discovered the surface area of a sphere, but we don't have enough time to explain how he did that. But he had done it. So, Archimedes, unfortunately, is dead, obviously, and he was murdered in the siege of Sicily from the Romans. Goodbye.